Yes, Christ is risen. Yeah, we've got this. We've got this. So I hope you had a good Easter, traditional Easter last week. And I've heard some good stories about your various Easter celebrations. That's a great thing. So we're kind of pulling a thread from Easter into this second Sunday of Easter today by talking about birds. So as I said earlier, we've had this kindness habitat here in our worship space. Been talking about a kindness all year long, but we've had a kindness habitat mindset for Lent, Holy Week, and Easter. So we had a forest, and then lo and behold, on Easter, our forest, just like that little mustard seed, with time, produced something greater than we thought. We had birds, and instead of a crown of thorns, what appeared? A nest. So we have a nest there to bless us and remind us of how God is at work. So let's continue to let God bless us with birds. So it just seems like a great day to focus on this text from Matthew 6. I love this text. I love the image of the birds. I love the image of the flowers. And I love the Message translation of this text. I think maybe it's the King James talks about consider the lilies of the field, or consider the lilies. It's one of those texts that goes into broader English language. But the Message says, consider or look at the wildflowers. I love wildflowers so much, and it's April. And so this is a great time to see the beginnings of some wildflowers emerging. So, Lynn, do you have wildflowers where you are? Yeah, what kinds do you have? Yeah? Yeah. Oh, you have a lot of things going on there. And are you seeing a few more things crop up right now, or not? A lot of weeds. Yeah. Yeah, somebody was talking about birds and they said starlings, so maybe not all, not all things from the natural world are things we celebrate necessarily. I remember going out at my grandpa's farm, and there'd be, trillium and Dutchman's breeches. I always liked those two. Bloodroot. So, Jack in the Pulpit. Liked that one. So, anyway, I've just always loved this text. So this year I thought, how fun is that? Let's do the bird text, since we're doing a whole bird liturgy, a bird theme. What can we learn from the birds? So what does Jesus want us to learn from the birds and flowers? Did you catch that? What was the piece of advice? Not to worry. So amid all the bird whistles and the flowers and things coming in, Jesus was trying to get our attention. Look to nature so that you do not worry. 10 verses are all about not worrying. That just blows my mind. Did people worry 2,000 years ago? I think of that being kind of a modern thing. But here it is, Jesus, again, it's not one verse, it's basically 10 verses saying, do not worry, do not worry, do not worry. So at both Bible studies this week, I asked a question. I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring it into Sunday. And with any question I ask, sometimes I ask a question and we just have to move on. But today I want to take a little time asking a question, and I really would like to get live feedback from you if you would like to say something. And here at Discovery, we are a safe place. You don't have to say anything. You can keep your thoughts in your own mind. But this is a time where, if you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your thoughts out loud. So, very simple question to start with. It's a yes, no. Are you a worrier? Yes or no? So, for those, comfortable, who are the yeses, right?
I'm an advanced planner.
Oh, we've already changed the game on this one. John, did you hear what your wife said? So someone is not a worrier, she is an advanced planner. So whatever you want to call this, raise your hand if you're a yes. You're a worrier. So we have worriers. So how about I'll ask the other thing. Do we have people who aren't worriers? You'd say a no. Anybody not a worrier? Yeah. So we have a mix. I love it. I love seeing a mix of yes, no's. I think there were a few more yeses. Okay, now with that, question number 2, scale of worry. If 1 is low and 10 is high, if you are a worrier, where would you put yourself? A 1, a 5, 10, something else. So would love to hear from you. You're an 8. Okay, somebody's admitting it.
No, she's not an 8.
She's an 8? Isn't it funny how other people in our lives may have a different assessment? So that's also a cool thing here. But we'll self-assess to start, but if you have other humans that want to chime in. So anybody else want to chime in? 1 to 10? 5 over here? What's that? Okay, that's a good question too. There's 2 different questions there. And these are very open-ended. They're meant to spark conversation. And so just whatever gets you sparking and talking. Fortunately, you said? Or unfortunately? Unfortunately, he says he's a 10. Okay?
I have OCD.
Okay.
I don't check things. I worry that something bad's going to happen to me or my family.
Right. So it is a mental health struggle for a lot of us. Could have a compulsive thing, that OCD or something that kind of it's part of that ball of wax. Definitely, that's why I thought it's a modern thing, but it turns out it's also an ancient thing. Yeah.
I'm a 5 if my advanced planning is well done.
You're a 5 if your advanced planning is well done, and then the other part of that is
As long as my planning is done, I'm pretty good.
okay.
But
if the
probably a
planning's
5
not
in there.
done.
If the planning's not done,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if it's 6 months in advance, all the better.
If it's 6 months in advance, all the better.
But if unexpected things come up, that's what gets you.
Unexpected things could come up and make you toward the 10 spectrum. So we'll keep going. Other things about worrisome, different things that came up. Someone this week said as they've grown older, they feel like they worry less, or life experiences have taught them to worry less. Somebody else told me they worry more now. So just throwing that out. Any thoughts about worry? No shame, no shame.
It's wasted energy.
Okay, waste of energy. What else?
Based on more than yourself.
Okay, you worry regarding other people. Thank you. So let's take that to the next step there. And again, you can just answer inside your head. If you worry, when you worry, what are you worrying about? What are you worrying about? So, anybody comfortable sharing what you might be worrying about, or what things you imagine? Bob, other Bob.
I get worried about time schedules because I fly stuff.
Okay, schedules, like airplane travel. Yeah, I have airplane dreams, like I'm missing a flight. So clearly, I also have homework dreams when I'm not ready for the sermon. So I'm like, ooh, how will I get this done? Yeah.
I mostly worry about dying.
You worry about dying. Yeah, that's a scary one. That can be a very scary one. So is there anything else you'd like to name?
Safety.
safety. So just your own, like your personal safety or being on the road. Yeah, you drive a lot. Yeah, you're out on the road a lot. So other things you want to put out there that are worries.
Activities in the family. We had, my sister passed away 6 months ago and the service was yesterday. And most of the family lives out of town, so I had been worried about that, about how that's gonna go. And it went well, so this afternoon I'm gonna go home, take a nap.
Okay, so Kay had a very important event with the loss of your sister a few months back, and the service was yesterday. So it was a complex event, a lot of different people involved, important event. You were doing some things, other people were doing some things. So I think we've all been in those shoes. Yeah. Yes, what the future holds for us health-wise. Yes, that's a good one to name. Is there anything else you want to put out there? Anybody worry about a family member?
What's the difference between worrying and concern?
Right. So then, what is worry and what is concern? Is there a nugget of worry that's okay? Are we saying that? That there's a part of worry that's connected to this thing called concern or being conscientious? That is a good thing, right? Then when does it become a not healthy thing?
When it's anxiety.
When it's anxiety. So they seem to come from the same root of things. So, gosh, I hope you find comfort today that Jesus devotes 10 verses to this. And Jesus says, look to the birds, look to the flowers, and says, why do we do that? Because God cares for the birds and cares for you more. God cares for those flowers that are just out and don't toil or have jobs, and God loves you more. God sees, God cares, God provides. So if there's any way we can like steep our brains in that, I'm like world-class worrier. So another reason I love this text is not just the birds and the flowers, it's the gospel, a reminder of God's love and care for me. So I tell you, God loves you, God sees you, God cares about you, God provides. Boy, we have to hear that over and over and over again. So let's dig just a little more deeply about this worry thing. So we just already talked about, okay, there's a good function and a bad function. Sometimes I think people are worriers because they're paired with somebody who's not a worrier. And that is a good thing. You know, we do, let's be caring about things is important. Conscientiousness is important. So what is Jesus trying to address? What is worry? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Do we think God's not going to provide for us? Is that what's going on there? Well, let's zoom out a little bit. We look at a text and we think, well, why is that there? What's up with that? So this Matthew 6 text is a part of the Sermon on the Mount, which is Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. And Matthew 6, this worry and bird and flower thing is the last paragraph of the whole chapter. If you zoom out of Matthew chapter 6, the chapter is a lot about personal spiritual practice. It starts out talking about kind of a word we're not fond of these days, piety. So often when we use the word piety, we think, oh, someone is so pious, I just can't listen to them. And that's what Jesus is saying, 6 verse 1. Be aware of pious people. be aware of how you practice your spiritual stuff, because you can quickly go in the ditch. And not just with spiritual stuff, just living your ordinary life. You can go in the ditch with it. So Jesus has some cautions. So Jesus talks about how you share your money through an offering, how you pray, how you fast. So that was one of their bigger spiritual practices. In how we practice our spirituality, for those of you who studied the text this week, what was Jesus' biggest piece of advice when you practice praying or giving money or do it in private? Don't be a show-off. Don't be a show-off in how you practice religion. I think Jesus says it 11 different times in the first 18 verses. Don't be such a show-off like some people. Do it in a quiet way. God sees. So Jesus dispenses with our practice of religion being something so that other people see me, see how religious I am, see how great I am. It's not about that. It is about something far more authentic. It's about your inner world with God. It's between you and God. It is a secret, hidden thing. That's where you connect with your well, is we do these things like church and prayer and practices and care about one another, not so other people think we're so hot, but this authentic way of connecting with God. So that makes me think of, did you know there's an NCAA final game today? I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but there's an NCAA women's basketball final today. Well, it's around 2 o'clock or so, I think. Anyway, and there's 2 teams playing. One of them's Iowa and one of them's something else. So, and I know I've only used Caitlin Clark illustrations twice in the past year, so I think I'm due for one more Caitlin Clark illustration from the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, yeah, you may have been aware of this. So I'm fascinated by psychology in general, and one aspect of psychology is sports psychology or performance psychology. So I love reading about athletes and teams and what helps them get higher functioning in how they do their sport or function as a team, because I just always feel like I learn stuff, and then I think it relates to being a church and being a good disciple. So one of the recent articles from ESPN had a big profile of Caitlin Clark, and some of it was stuff I already knew and I told you about. But part of the spin in this article was how in her sports psychology, team psychology work, she was realizing, you can be this high-level athlete, but if you make it about praise and you make it about fame, it's a drug, and it is not productive at all. There needs to be a different intrinsic sense of why you're doing this. Why are you doing this? Otherwise, it's just not productive. It's not a core motivation. So in her self-analysis, and she learns a lot about herself, and we all do, she came up with a mantra of peace in the quest, having peace in the quest for what she is doing. And I thought, that reminded me of the first part of Matthew 6. You don't do it for praise or eyeballs or look at me and I'm just this greatest athlete. You have this inner sense of, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? And connect with your secret joy. It's about your inner life and connection, and not about outer eyeballs. So I thought that was pretty Matthew chapter 6 going on there. So it starts with our inner life, and then Jesus moves in chapter 6. Okay, start with your inner life. Then things can thwart our inner life, like worrying, like getting distracted. So then we need that toolkit to say, oh, I'm worrying. I'm full of fear. So another practice, first being aware of it, that that's a thing. And then a practice that I think I'm always working on this part of my game. The last couple of weeks, a lot of times when I'm working on my own psychological health, it's a 1, 2, 3 thing. And the last couple of weeks, I've had this image of step 1, I'm worrying. Oh, I'm, had just unproductive thoughts. Step 1. Lately, I have it's a gray swirl. Oh, I'm having a gray swirl. Not gray squirrel, gray swirl moment. I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling negative. Okay, I've got that. And just being aware. That's going on. And then stopping, step 2, and asking God for help. There's something there for me to learn from. Asking God for help, seeking God, getting some insight, maybe reading scripture like this. Oh, if God cares for the birds and the flowers, hello, God cares, God sees, God will provide. And then from that, step 3, experiencing new life, experiencing, oh, here's a way forward, oh, here's hope. But I literally find I have to do kind of a 3-step process to get me back on the road. And I was thinking that sports psychology has this thing of possession by possession. You don't worry about the whole game. Just focus on when you got the ball, or the next possession when you possess the ball. Focus on that. Another sports psychology thing is, you do your play. If the play goes up or down, you got to have the psychology of next play. What's the next play? And I think Alcoholics Anonymous has a great, one day at a time. One day at a time. Also part of Matthew 6 is the Lord's Prayer. Give us a day our daily bread. But, okay, final basketball analogy. Contained within this text about birds and flowers and do not worry is this golden verse. It's chapter 6, 33. Instead of all that rat race, crazy brain, strive first for God's kingdom and God's righteousness. Pivot from worry to God's kingdom and God's righteousness. That's the basket. That's the field goal. That's where we're headed. God's kingdom and God's righteousness. Know what you're aiming at. That's the basket we're heading for. God's kingdom, God's habitat. And not just any habitat, but righteousness, a habitat of kindness. There we are again, a kindness habitat. That's what we're shooting for. What a great thing to have on our annual meeting day. Discovery, that's what we're shooting for. We are shooting for God's habitat. Do not worry. We are on this journey of serving God, being a part of God's kingdom making in our era. And let's enjoy that. We are a part of something larger than ourselves, creating this habitat, and how we do it is Christian kindness and love. So, more of that, on to another season of practicing these important things. So I thought I better end with a cheer, right? Let's get fired up. 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 What do they do? Is it let's get fired up? And then they do a cartwheel and then pretend I'm standing on someone's shoulders, which we all are. We stand on the shoulders of great people. Let's continue. To God be the glory. Amen.